Hey everybody, today is February 11th, so we'll be looking at February 10th's MTG stocks. As we can see today, nothing too big here, 40% increase, whatever. Some Kamigawa stuff, which is a little bit interesting. Then, I got some reserve lists, and I got Arabian Nights. It seems like these older cards like these like to come up quite a bit. These fluctuate too much to really get a good idea. And not too many price decreases. As you can see, we got a pretty big price spike here. We'll kind of go over that one, and let's see, a lot of increases, quite a few above 40%, which is nice to see. I don't know if it's nice to see, but it's something to see, I guess I should say. And then we got some price decreases. So let's go ahead and get into our first one here. This one is Locust Miser. Locust Miser went from 157 to 220. And this is from the Saviors of Kamigawa set. I love some Kamigawa. I don't know, there's something about like the spirits and also the rats, and they have a bunch of other really cool things in that set. But anyways, let's go ahead and read what Locust Miser does. Locust Miser is a 2-colorless black. He's a creature rat shaman. Each opponent's maximum hand size is reduced by 2. So, and he's a 2/2. So if you have a rat deck, this is good to have just because, well, rats, rat tribal. If you like that or not, that's up to you. I know we talked about the secret layer stuff kind of recently, and that could be a reason why rat stuff, like him, why he went up, but not sure on that. But I still, just each opponent's maximum hand size reduced by 2 is pretty rough. In a commander game, you're basically making people drop. If you're fighting 4 people, that means you are dropping off 6 cards, which can give you a huge card advantage, especially if everybody's at max hand size. But if you were to somehow make 2 or 3 of these, either by copying them, or if you are not playing commander and you have 2 or 3 in your deck, it can be very, very annoying. But yeah, I mean, this isn't a card I would specifically like to play, only because I'm not a huge fan of discarding cards or stuff like that. It seems a little bit restrictive, and I'm sure there's a lot of ways to really make this annoying for your opponents. But regardless, it is an interesting card. There's not like a ton of these reduce hand size kind of deals. Also, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense. He is a Locust Miser, so you see a bunch of Locust, kind of like he's controlling them. So neat artwork as well. So the next one here is actually another Kamigawa card. This is Zuzu the Punisher. He is originally from Champions of Kamigawa, and he went from 426 to 499. Not a huge increase, but he was, you can see kind of over here that he's about $3.50, and not too long ago, I think he is like $2.50. So he's been steadily increasing. And Zuzu is a very interesting card, and some people may or may not know him, but he's a very terrifying commander, or just a very annoying 1/99 card for commander decks. So Zuzu costs 1 colorless, red. He's a 2/2, and he's a legendary creature, Goblin Warrior. So you can make him commander, like I was saying. And whenever a land enters the battlefield, Zuzu deals 2 damage to that land's controller. So this is kind of spooky, because usually people are playing a land per turn. Usually. Not always. And since he costs 1 red, he should be fairly easy to get out quickly if you're a red deck. So kind of the idea is that you want to send your deck around getting a lot of artifacts or other types of mana ramp that don't include land. And then you kind of send your deck around this whole idea of, you could do mass land destruction, which a lot of people do, because basically the idea is that, oh, you put a land down, it deal 2 damage to you. Oh, I'm going to blow up your lands. Oh, you tap a land for mana, I'm going to deal damage to you with something like mana barbs. There are a lot of things that are very annoying that you can do with this guy. If you play this guy, you should probably make sure that your group will not immediately exile you from the game table, because they may not like this. There are probably different ways to play Zuzu. You don't have to go mass land destruction or anything. You could probably just really go for a heavy group slug, which, I mean, Zuzu kind of is a group slug commander, but I think a lot of people do tend towards the mass land destruction. So if you can steer away from that and just go group slug, I think people will like you slightly better. Especially if you have effects that deal damage to yourself, then it kind of feels a little bit more fair, maybe. But it could be nice if you just need a quick game to play, just because sometimes you just really need that quick game to play. Anyways, let's go ahead and go to our third card of the night, which is Path to Exile. This isn't a it's not. This is a card that's probably well known, but the reason why I want to pick this card is mostly because I really like this art. So let's go ahead and get into what Path of Exile does. Path of Exile, this one went from $22.99 to $20.44. So this was actually a price decrease by a little bit. And as you can see, this card is actually about $5 in most cases. You may have seen this art here. This one's a little bit more common to see. But this is a pretty famous, I guess, white card. So Path to Exile cost just 1 white. It's an instant, and you exile target creature. Its controller may search the library for a basic land card, put it in the battlefield tapped, then shuffle their library. This is basically even though you are mana ramping your opponent, the idea is that for 1 mana, you are exiling a creature. This is indestructible creatures. This is a really good way to get rid of those. Or if you just have so this really needs to go, or we're all going to die right now, is a good way to do it. So even though you are giving your opponent a benefit, usually just the very, very small cost of Path of Exile, it being an instant and being able to exile any creature, is just, any creature that I can target, I guess. It's very good value overall. And leaving up 1 mana isn't as detrimental as leaving up, there's some, like Murder, for instance, even though it's a black card, it costs 3 mana, which is quite a bit expensive. Much more expensive than Path to Exile. And additionally, it's only destroy. So it's kind of like the thing to think about, is that leaving only up 1 mana is a lot easier to deal with than leaving up 3 or 4 or 5 mana, depending on what kind of spells you're playing. Aside from that, this is a kind of special art card. This was from the Magic Fest cards, and then I don't know, I just really I like these full art cards on these fairly easy to remember cards. I mean, this one's just exile a card, your opponent can get a basic land if they want. And so not having the text on there, I think a lot of people know what Path to Exile do. If they don't, it's pretty easy to explain. So it's not I guess you can look it up if they don't believe you for some reason. But it's just, it's nice to have overall, just kind of on these small cards. I think we've talked about this before, but there are cards that are like Cryptic Command, where they have done they did a full art card, and they're like, oh yeah, this is a full art card with no text on it. Sorry, I should say textless card. And Cryptic Command has 5 lines of text on it, and even though all the abilities aren't super hard to know what they do, it's very hard to remember all 4 choices on Cryptic Command and etc. It's kind of funny that they did it, and I think a lot of people are kind of you shouldn't have done that. And it's interesting to see kind of hindsight stuff like that. But anyways, let's go ahead and go into our 4th card. So this is Abbot of Kale Keep. Abbot of Kale Keep went from $1 to $3.50, and this was actually over the week. This was one of the top week cards, and I don't know what this card really does. So let's go ahead and kind of see what this thing is all about. Whoa, time to go and just get off YouTube, I guess. But anyways, Abbot of Kale Keep is a 1 colorless red creature human monk. It's a 2/1. And it has prowess. And let's see, with prowess, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So you cast, I guess, kind of some ideas that you want to go for would be cantrips. So, if you have something like Ponder allows you to basically, you pay 1 mana, you get to look at the top 3 cards of your deck, draw a card, whatever. Cantrips are basically any kind of card that costs 1 or less mana and allows you to draw a card. So that kind of stuff could be good for the prowess here. But anyways, when he enters the battlefield, exile the top card of your library. Until end of the turn, you may play that card. Okay. So, kind of why... Okay, also, this is technically the one that went up, the promo. Oh no, just Magic Origins. One of these millions of... millions. One of these 3 cards went up, and it's this one, it looks like. But anyways... So it seems like this one's actually pretty good, because it's basically a 2-mana 2/1 that has prowess. But the prowess is kind of like, I mean, you're probably not going to focus on that too much. You might if you're going for a prowess deck, or I could potentially see this being useful in a Niv Mizzet deck, because you're going to be drawing a lot of cards, and you may be using a lot of cantrips. So that may be a decent way to kind of like use his prowess to a better effect. But really the main thing here is that you get to draw a temporary card. And... I mean, for 2 mana, 2/1, draw a card in red, pretty good. You may not be able to play it, but I think it's kind of like a huge red thing that they're getting into more. So I think it's pretty useful. I also like the art. I like the kind of flame waves going through here. You know, I like fire's good. Fire. Let's go and go into our commander of the week, which this one is going to be Ezuri, Claw of Progress. So Ezuri is a pretty interesting commander. I always liked elves, and I like Golgari elves. When I first started, I did mono green elves, so I thought it'd be kind of interesting to look into Simek elves, and because I've done a lot of dredge and etc. So doing Golgari elves just makes me think like, okay, do I really want another dredge? So if I was to do an elf deck, I would probably go for the Simekness here. So Ezuri, Claw of Progress, he cost 2 colorless, green and a blue. He's a 3/3 legendary creature elf warrior. Whenever a creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, you gain an experience counter. So this is pretty good for elves, because a lot of elves will have 1 attack, like Land of War elves or something like that. You know, most of these elves are going to have 1 attack or less. 2 attack is pretty easy to get to. So you'll pretty much, when you play an elf, not always, but pretty much when you play an elf, you'll get an experience counter. And this was kind of like a system that was, I guess this was in Commander 2015. I think each of the commanders had like an experience counter kind of thing. A lot of people I think some people like it, some people hate it, is how it is. But the interesting thing about the experience counters here is that, so if you have Ezuri out, let's say you get like 3 experience counters and then someone kills Ezuri, the thing is that you, the player, get those experience counters. So even when Ezuri dies, you get to keep those experience counters. And then, if someone, or once you cast Ezuri again, his effect will go off based on his experience counters. And let's go to read that second part here. And this second part says, at the beginning of combat, on your turn, put X +1/+1 counters on another target creature you control, or X is the number of experience counters you have. So, basically, Ezuri's ability, even though you, the player, had the experience counter, Ezuri gets an effect based on those experience counters. Basically, as long as you have another creature, like a Land of War elf, like we were talking about earlier, then Ezuri will put 3 +1/+1 counters on that Land of War elf at the beginning of combat on your turn. So it's kind of like, the idea is that if you win Ezuri, and Simek does this pretty well in general, especially with like Proliferate and other things like that, you will basically start putting a bunch of +1/+1 counters on your small elves, and then suddenly your small elves turn into big elves, and they become a big problem. And so it's kind of like a neat idea. I mean, +1/+1 counter decks are always fun, and there's a lot of things that you can do that are spooky. So it seems like a pretty fun way to go about this. The other thing about this is that usually experience counters are not easily dealt with. Like, there isn't really a way to remove them, except, aside from player removal, I guess, there is an interesting card that is called Sun Cleanser. So Sun Cleanser, basically, when he comes into play, you can choose one of 2 things. You can either remove all counters from target creature, and they cannot gain counters as long as Sun Cleanser is on the battlefield. So you can remove all +1/+1 counters from a creature or etc. But the other ability is that you can target an opponent, I believe, and that opponent loses all counters. and they can't gain counters as long as Sun Cleanser's on the battlefield. So, with Ezuri, let's say if you get like 5 experience counters, if someone plays a Sun Cleanser, all those experience counters are now gone from you, and you can't gain any until that Sun Cleanser is gone. That's something that you kind of think about. I don't think you have to worry about it too much, because not a lot of people play Sun Cleanser. I personally like him, but I think he's a little bit too situational, because he can pretty much do nothing. But I guess at the same time, playing a 2-mana 1/4 isn't the worst. But I think in those like small tech situations, he can be pretty nice. Like if someone comes out with a, +10/+10, you're like suddenly like, okay, well, I'm just gonna remove all of this. It's like, oh, well, that's not good for me. And then for our random card of the night, we're going to be looking at Plain-Wide Celebration. This is one of my favorite cards. I feel like I've talked about this before. I'd be surprised if I haven't. So, Plain-Wide Celebration is a 5 colorless green sorcery. That's a lot of mana. Yes. Those are going to probably not be in more competitive decks. Those are going to probably be a little bit more casual, I'd say. Pretty easy to say that. But I love this card so much, and this will actually help with Ezuri. So you choose 4. You may choose the same mode more than once. So basically, there are 4 choices you can choose from. You can create a 2/2 citizen creature token that's all colors. So basically, you can just make a 2/2 token. The other one is return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. So you have a little bit of recursion. You can proliferate, which basically allows you to put another counter on target permanent you control. And then you can gain 4 life. And so I am pretty certain, and let me know if this is not the case, but I'm pretty certain because proliferate has the word permanent. I'm pretty sure it says permanent, that you cannot proliferate yourself because you're not a permanent, you are yourself. So I'm pretty sure you cannot proliferate experience counters, which is kind of no bueno for Ezuri. But regardless, if you're doing a +1/+1 counter deck, and let's say it's been about 3 turns, you have Ezuri out, and you've made 3 of your creatures have, +3/+3, you get Plain-Wide Celebration out. You can proliferate 4 times, and now all those creatures get +4 +1/+1 counters, which is pretty spooky. I mean, this gives you a ton of versatility. You don't even have to be proliferate with this. It's usually better, mind you, because I think proliferate is kind of like the big thing here. But making 4 2/2s is a way to make sure that you have blockers. Getting 16 life real quick is a way for you to not die. Returning permanents from your graveyard to your hand. This is like a good use for this would be potentially Simek Ascendancy. Actually, I was playing this a little bit earlier, and I was able to get a Simek. The Simek Ascendancy was, of course, destroyed. And then I was able to bring back a Simek Ascendancy, and even though it was destroyed again, I guess, it was still useful to be able to bring it back from my graveyard because I don't have a ton of ways to have recursion from my graveyard. But then, of course, the proliferate here is very nice as well because, and you can even just be like, I just need 8 life. I'm going to proliferate twice, whatever you need to do. But I think Plain-Wide Celebration is, I don't know if it's an overlooked card because I feel like it really does shine more in +1/+1 counter decks or -1/-1 counter decks or whatever. But I think I feel like if you are running green and you have +1/+1 counters to some degree, Plain-Wide Celebration is your friend. And you should probably put it in there. And I love it. It's a good card. To me. Maybe not anybody else, but I like it. Anyways, we'll end off our night here with a couple random cards, as always. For random card number 1, well, bam. Ghostly Prison. Oh, okay. I believe this also started, by the way, in Kamigawa. This was a uncommon way back when. It still is, I guess. But Ghostly Prison is a 2 colorless, 1 white enchantment. Creatures can't attack you unless their controller pays 2 colorless for each creature they control that's attacking you. So if they have 20 creatures, you can be like, okay, fine, you can attack me, but you're going to have to pay 40 mana if you want to attack with everything. Now, mind you, they'll probably not do that. They'll probably be like, okay, I'll attack you with my 2 or 3 biggest creatures if they really, really have to attack you, like if you're the last person or you're the biggest threat. But this is definitely a deterrent for people attacking you. They're like, I don't really want to have to deal with that. Let's just not attack him. And I can appreciate that. in the sense of like, I don't want to pay like 8 mana to attack somebody and try and kill them, and they probably have other ways to stop me. But Ghostly Prison is a very good stacks piece, but I think even if you're not playing stacks, I feel like this is just a way to kind of help you build up a little bit better. Especially if you're doing like harder things like high converted mana cost creatures like angels or demons or something like that. I think this is just a way for you to be like, okay, I know I'm gonna die if I don't have something to have people stop attacking me, because I'm gonna have to play these big creatures eventually. But I think this is the kind of thing where you should be like, okay, put this out, probably not have to worry about it for a little while. And yeah, so Ghostly Prison, pretty good. It was like, I think it was like $5 or $6 not too long ago, and it's been going down more, which is kind of nice to see, because I would like to be able to get a few of these, a couple of these, whatever, some point, but I don't think I guess I probably have one from Commander 2019, but that's about it. Anyways, let's go ahead and go to our second random card of the night, which is a swamp. It sure is. I believe this is from Portal Second Age. Art-wise, got some bones. We got a house, and I guess we got some plants that are black, because it's a swamp, and you can only have black art in a swamp. I don't know. Let's go and get another card. Okay, third card of the night. Okay, this is a land, but it's different. So, Halls of Mist. This is a land. This is from Ice Age. This is Cumulative Upkeep 1. Cumulative Upkeep, basically the idea is, so if Cumulative Upkeep is 1, so you put it out, when it goes to your next turn and at your upkeep, you pay 1. When you pass that turn and then it gets back to you, this would be your second upkeep after you've played this, the cost would be 2. And then it'd be 3 and 4 and etc. That's kind of the idea of what Cumulative Upkeep is. Anyways, what it actually does is, creatures that attack during the controller's last turn can't attack. Huh. Okay, kind of interesting. So, this is a good way to, like, if someone attacked you all out, and you're just like, okay, sure, that's fine. Play Halls of Mist down, and now they can't attack you again. I think that's a good way to, like, this is basically a stall tactic, sort of like Ghostly Prison. Actually, I don't know if it's as good, because it's basically every other turn they attack you or can attack you. Well, the thing is that it also affects you. So this would probably be like, you probably don't want a huge creature based deck, because it's not going to be helpful for you. But yeah, I haven't seen this before. I kind of like it. It's interesting. I don't know like how good it is, but I think it definitely is one of those life-saving kind of deals, because someone fully attacks you, then you play out Halls of Mist, and then they're like, uh-oh, I can't attack. So it kind of gives you an extra turn to do something that you need to do. But aside from that, I like how there's just a skeleton here. He just got his arms out, and I feel like he's trying to, like, looks like he's maybe trying to cast something or trying to be spooky, but I feel like he's just kind of like, I don't really know what I'm doing here. I'm just kind of giving you a shrug. I like it. I love these old arts. It's the good stuff. But anyways, hope you all enjoyed. I'll see you next time. Have a good one.